It all started here, some 17 years ago.
The ball was thrown, but I guess it's loose, and Terrell Suggs picks it up. Look at Maddox.
Tommy Maddox is hurt. He's holding that right arm.
There is a new quarterback, and he is the rookie out of Miami of Ohio, Ben Roethlisberger. A 3-yard strike in the young quarterback's first touchdown pass in his career.
But the question was, for Ben Roethlisberger, is this where it would end?
The two teams still have playoff hopes alive. They may be dim playoff hopes, but they are alive.
For the 6th time in the Mike Tomlin era, the Steelers would need to win their final game of the season and lean on others to secure a playoff spot.
This is the only one guaranteed. We control what we can control. Do it together, man. Talk it up, communicate, have each other's back. Make sure we dominate, man.
The NFL's fiercest rivalry, a potential playoff spot on the line, and a legend's journey coming full circle. More simply put, it was the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Baltimore Ravens.
Here we go.
This pass is caught, and that's a touchdown.
That's the way to work. Come on.
He's hit that sack. The Steelers win the football game.
Let's go. Come get it. You know what it is.
This one is in the history books.
Here we go.
Welcome to the 84 Lumber Mike Tomlin Show.
Hi everybody, welcome to the 84 Lumber Mike Tomlin Show. I'm Missy Matthews. Entering Week 18, odds makers gave Pittsburgh just an 8% chance of postseason football. It took an overtime game-winning field goal by Raiders kicker Daniel Carlson in the regular season finale and a little help from a 2-14 Jaguars team to hand Pittsburgh their ticket to the playoffs. But first and foremost, they had to take care of business inside of M&T Bank Stadium. And for more on the Steelers' regular season finale versus the Ravens, let's welcome in Bob Pompeani, who's with Coach Tomlin now. Guys.
Thanks so much, Missy. We welcome in head coach Mike Tomlin, who is busy on Instagram. Man, you got into it, that win against Baltimore, and why not? To end up at 9-7-1, you guys started 1-3, end up 8-4-1. That must have been a great moment in the locker room.
Bob, you inspired me, man, watching you dance at the Steeler fashion show. I didn't want to be the only guy that displayed, I didn't want you to be the only guy that displayed some dancing skills.
So in other words, you're ready for TikTok. Look out.
No question.
This was a wild Sunday. I don't think I've ever seen anything like it. I mean, people were watching from their basements. People were throwing things at their TVs. I'm curious where you were watching the last game of the regular season.
I was watching in my basement. That's generally where I watch football that I care about, so I can lock in. I was watching in the basement.
And your reaction as it unfolded?
I don't know that I had a reaction, to be honest with you. I had already kind of resolved in my mind going into the weekend, even prior to our game and prior to Jacksonville, that there were certain elements of the weekend outside of our control, and we had already made that bed and I was prepared to lay in it. What I was focused on last weekend was the business that was within our control, and that was how we performed and played in Baltimore. And so I was at peace with whatever transpired. I'd been in those circumstances in that very basement before, to be quite honest with you, and I watched Suck Up miss a kick that could have sent us into the playoffs a number of years ago. So I've been there, done that.
You also got a nice gift. Number one, Daniel Carlson makes the field goal, and I find it interesting. A lot of Steeler fans have been giving to his charities, which is great. But I have a long-time relationship with Darrell Bevell. And Darrell Bevell did you guys a solid with the win over the Colts, and then he complimented you guys afterwards. Talk about that. How great was that to see?
Man, it's awesome. But I was familiar with the history of that series, and that's one of the things we were talking about last week regarding divisional play. It has a texture to it, and it's intense and it's familiar. Regardless of records, Indy has always had a tough time in recent years in Jacksonville. And so I wasn't surprised that it was highly competitive. I was surprised that Jacksonville won so definitively the way that they did, but I was not surprised that it was a football game just based on the nature of their relationships, particularly in recent years.
But first things first, you guys had to take care of business, and you did against the Ravens, sweeping them. That was a game that, man, had so many ups and downs. And second half, big drives. Ben Roethlisberger with his 53rd game-winning, comeback in that game. So many critical third down plays. What is it about him in those moments?
Like I've said a lot in recent days and weeks, when others are uncomfortable, he's comfortable. When it gets really thick, he's normal. He relishes those opportunities. He sees it a little bit different than most. His pulse rate's a little slower than most. I think all of those things make up him and what allows him to be as effective as he is in those moments.
And another guy who's really stepped up is Ray Mccloud. You guys brought him in here. You must have liked what he obviously brought to special teams, and we saw that on display. But he has constantly moved up the target list. What is it about his work that has impressed you?
He's a quality young man and hard worker, and he's growing by leaps and bounds from a technical standpoint. He's growing by leaps and bounds also from an understanding of the game standpoint. But his upswing is born out of, the loss of Juju and opportunities to play inside, coupled with the attention that Chase and Deontay get on the perimeter. When Chase and Deontay are in one-on-ones on the perimeter, they win a vast majority of those. And so oftentimes they see rolled up coverage and 2-on-1 coverage, middle of the field open type coverages, and that creates one-on-one opportunities for guys like Ray on the interior. He's been taking advantage of it, and so has Pat Freiermuth.
Another guy we should talk about is Najee Harris, just for the fact that he got injured in that game. It looked bad at the time, at least watching it on a replay, but he came back and made some unbelievable plays in the stretch run. Why has he not hit the wall as a rookie? We hear about that all the time, but for him, it seems like he just keeps on keeping on.
I think, first of all, he's blessed from a physical talent standpoint. He's got maturity beyond his years from a physicality standpoint. He doesn't erode, but also I think the journey that has brought him here. He played at Alabama and has been involved in football, extended more so than most, SEC championships, BCS bowl brackets, etc. This is a guy that's used to 14 and 15 games, and so I just think that he's been hardened by that process, and it put him in position to be more of a contributor from start to finish than most people in his class.
One other play that I think was big, and it's kind of overlooked in this, but Minka Fitzpatrick made a play on Hollywood Brown that was very significant. That breakup of that pass, otherwise, who knows what could have happened. How important was that? And these are kinds of some of the things you see from him that don't necessarily, resonate in box scores, whatever, but he seems to have made a lot of those down the stretch.
Man, I can't say enough about Minka and the quality of his play. It's a shame oftentimes, defensive backs are measured by interceptions and interceptions exclusively in the same ways that pass rushers are measured by sacks. Because to measure his contributions by interception alone is doing him and his contributions a disservice. I think he's our tackle leader on the season. He does a lot in terms of tying us together. He makes all the necessary plays like the one that you mentioned that are significant in those significant moments. He did the same thing on a fourth down play in Cleveland to secure victory there. He's always Johnny on the spot, particularly when things get really thick. And those are some of the things that we really value about him and what he brings to us.
Well, all those guys are going to be important role players here this week as the Steelers move to Kansas City to take on the Chiefs in the first round of the playoffs. We'll talk about KC and the problems they present coming up a little bit later in the broadcast. Right now, let's send it back to Missy.
All right, thanks, Bob. And the Steelers and Chiefs will be one of 5 rematches of the 2021 regular season in the first round of the playoffs, the most ever in the wild card round in league history. Pittsburgh lost to Kansas City in Week 16, but 8 teams in the previous 5 years have rebounded from that regular season loss in the wild card round. Don't go anywhere. The 84 Lumber Mike Tomlin Show will be right back.
Welcome back to the 84 Lumber Mike Tomlin Show. Are you 84 Lumber material? Visit 84lumber.com/careers to learn more.
Sunday night's Wild Card Showdown will be the only game on the weekend slate to feature 2 Super Bowl winning quarterbacks in Ben Roethlisberger and Patrick Mahomes. The good news is only a handful of quarterbacks have more playoff experience than Ben Roethlisberger. On Sunday, he'll be making his 23rd postseason start, tying Joe Montana for the 4th most by a quarterback in NFL history. For a scouting report on the AFC's 2 seed, let's send it back over to Bob and Coach.
All right, Missy, thanks very much. It is the first round. What a super wild card weekend. They extended the playoffs by one team for each conference, and it's going to be some significant matchups. The Steelers head to Kansas City. Coach, you played there earlier this year. You'd said prior to that game you got to score a lot of points just to keep up with, because it's very difficult to completely stop a Patrick Mahomes-led team. How important will it be, and how does your offense produce more points than we've seen recently?
We got to take care of the ball better than we did the last time. We turned the ball over 3 times that produced 17 points, and you're just not going to give yourself a chance versus a group like that, particularly in that type of environment that we know that we're going into. And secondly, we better be prepared to be situationally aggressive. You can't settle for field goals and expect to be competitive. You're going to have to take calculated risks in pursuit of victory. And so we understand that and are preparing with that mentality.
Early in the season, Pat Mahomes, who had the most interceptions he's had really in his career, he was throwing those kind of things. There were a lot of tip balls and things, but yet you look at the numbers, and it's funny how his season, even by his standards, maybe not his best, it's like a contract year for a lot of other guys. He really has come on in the second half of the season.
Yeah, I don't know that any of us inside the business bought into the concept that he or they were in trouble. Particularly one pocket of games early on doesn't define you, man. You're defined by what you do over the longer haul, and particularly as the road gets narrow. We've seen what he's capable of in November and December. They positioned themselves at the number 2 spot in the AFC, and so he needs no endorsement from me. He is who he is. His talents are extraordinary. He had a pocket of games where the ball was being turned over, pressure, tip passes, et cetera, but I doubt he lost 1 week of sleep over that, and I doubt they did as well.
Last meeting, you did not see Travis Kelce. Everybody knows what he's capable of doing. Does it help that you played a guy like Mark Andrews last week? And even though he was targeted quite a bit, you guys did a pretty good job of limiting some of the big plays from his behalf. Does that help 1 week to the next going against that tight end and somebody like Kelce?
Certainly. You're talking about the number 1 and number 2 tight ends in the NFL in terms of targets and yardage. And so certainly there's some carryover in terms of their impact. And to be honest with you, it's probably better for us that he plays. They probably play more to their personality. He is such a dominant figure within their schematics, and so much of it goes through him. They're less predictable and tougher to get a beat on when somebody like that is not in the lineup when you consider all the other weapons that they have. And so, as funny as it sounds, we probably have a chance to play him tougher and be closer to them situationally because of his presence and how large his personality looms within their collective personality.
Kansas City is a tough team to defend because not only can they go down the field with Patrick Mahomes, but also their run game is pretty good. You guys have struggled in the run game department, run defense last week, even in victory, 240-plus yards. What do you do to stop that run game? Because you would expect Andy Reid to take advantage of that.
We got to do it with our front. When you're talking about playing Kansas City, it requires safeties in the passing game. And so, the front, particularly the front 4, they have to defeat blocks and make tackles. They can't trade 1-for-1 when you're in that mode. And so, our people up front have got to play significant roles. But I think that would be said for anyone that plays them, because week in and week out, they probably see more 2 high safety defenses where both safeties are allocated toward defending the pass than any team in football.
And you play in a venue that's one of the loudest in the NFL. I'm sure your team will be up for this. I'm just curious from a mindset point of view, you're 13-point underdogs in this game. Being in that position, is it sometimes good to be in that position that, you're kind of playing with house money?
I know what you mean, but, when we're in the midst of competition, I don't know that we gain perspective based on conversations along those lines. You don't get in this tournament unless you got great belief in yourself. We're focused on our preparation and readiness and ultimately our play. We feel like we can beat anyone. We respect those guys, but we're not going to blink in the face of the adversity that this journey presents or the fact that people in Vegas think they're heavily favored.
All right, that's Kansas City, Pittsburgh. A little inside information there from Coach Tomlin. That game will be on Sunday night. It'll be heavily viewed, and the Steelers will try to get in there and keep this journey rolling. When we come back, we'll get the keys to the game from head coach Mike Tomlin. Missy, let's send it back over to you.
All right, thanks, Bob. If the Steelers want to stay alive in the playoffs, the defense is going to have to make Patrick Mahomes uncomfortable on Sunday. The Chiefs QB has struggled when teams manage to rush 4 or less players, dropping his completion rate to 41% and his passer rating to 68. The Steelers defense trails only the Bears when sending 4 in terms of sack rate. Pittsburgh's offense could be receiving some playoff help in the form of Juju Smith-Schuster. The wide receiver was back at practice just 13 weeks after having shoulder surgery. Up next, Merril Hoge breaks down a few areas that the Steelers could improve in from the Week 16 matchup at Arrowhead. That's right after the break.
Welcome back to the 84 Lumber Mike Tomlin Show.
Well, it is certainly a game most people would like to forget. The Steelers were -3 in turnovers and lost by 26 points during their last visit to Arrowhead Stadium. Merril Hoge went back to the lab to dissect some of the film with the playoffs in balance to show us some key areas the Steelers can improve on this time around. For more on a look back at Week 16, here's this week's Playbook.
Hi, everyone, and welcome into the Factorback Studios for the Steelers Playbook Show, playoff style. That's right. We got dressed up for the playoffs. It's a rematch of the Kansas City Chiefs game. Now, I know that first game didn't go very well, but here's the good thing about that game. There were a lot of mental busts on both sides of the ball, offensively and defensively. Now, why is that good for this one? Those are correctable. They're easily correctable. Remember the team went in on Monday, started watching tape? This is what they're watching. They're watching these type of plays that we can create or correct. Let's first look at this one. This is a bunch formation right up here. So defensively, you got a little bunch down here defensively, okay? Inside guy, over the top, outside guy. To handle whatever they're gonna do right here. Well, at the snap of the ball, let's take a look at what happens. As they come off the ball, okay, your top guy, covered. Inside guy, it looks like he's covered. Where they make a mistake, and Joe kind of bites down here, they give the corner route, the out route, away. So 2 guys jump on the guy underneath and they give up a chunk of yards. Easily correctable. I do believe this is corrected. Now, were there some problems on the offensive side? Absolutely. Let's take a look at this play. And this is a play that they've struggled with at times, but you're gonna have doubles here. Now, here's what the runner's gonna do. Najee's gonna hug the double team. What these guys have to do is be responsible for these stacked backers if they run through. So let's clear the screen, let's hand it off to Najee. Okay, Trey Turner. Now once he gets turned this way, he's in a bad position. Hard to come off here, especially if this linebacker runs through, which he does, and he makes the tackle. Now you point this out because this is 100% fixable. You can correct that and you're gonna make it better.
And don't forget, you can catch all of Merril's playbooks by heading to the Steelers YouTube page. Well, Pittsburgh and Kansas City have only met twice in the postseason, splitting both games. The last matchup was the 2016 divisional game that saw the Steelers ride the leg of Chris Boswell's 6 field goals in an 18-16 win at Arrowhead. For more, let's send it back over to Bob with Coach's Keys to the Game, presented by your neighborhood Ford store. Guys.
Coach, let's talk with the keys to the game. Specifically, it's interesting how this little espionage game goes. I see the Chiefs brought in Matthew Sexton, who was with your team earlier. Melvin Ingram's there. Is that something that is beneficial to teams? We see it a lot. Does it actually result in anything?
You know, I think it's beneficial if you think it is. And so, you know, I don't know if it's beneficial to them. I know it's not something that we worry about at all, to be quite honest with you. You know, we focus on the guys that are here and the putting together of this plan this week. Although we do have some guys that have been exposed to this, as you mentioned, none of those guys are a part of this week, and so they're not abreast of the intimate details of what we're putting together in an effort to engineer victory this week, and I think that's what's important.
Last time you were there, started slowly. They got out to a big lead, and of course turnovers helped. I would imagine a fast start is important, especially with that crowd at Arrowhead.
You know, certainly, you know, we better remain close. It can't be the way it unfolded last time. And so whether you define it as a fast start for us offensively or slow start for them offensively, we better be within striking distance. If we're within striking distance, we have a chance to turn it into a ballroom brawl, and that probably weighs in our favor. I think we're built for that. We've been in a lot of those type of games, and to be quite honest with you, I think we're comfortable under those circumstances.
How important is the inside linebacker game for your team? You've had some guys step up when others have been out. Marcus Allen got in there, did a pretty good job, and others. How important, given this opponent, is that inside linebacking?
I don't know that it's any more important than any other position. It's January ball. There's nowhere to hide. I love that. We're going to need contributions from every man in the helmet, particularly those that are on the grass. Positionally, I don't think there's anywhere to hide when you get on these stages, man. We need quality play and playmaking from all three levels of defense, from all the positions on offense, and particularly those on special teams.
Your offensive line did a good job last week protecting Ben Roethlisberger. The longer this goes, a lot of these guys are young, but I would imagine by now they have enough game experience where you can expect them to execute at the level you need to.
I agree with that, but you also have to acknowledge that the playoff environment is a different one. Those that haven't been exposed to it, you can talk to them about it. You can tee it up for them, but they feel it when they're there. The level of intensity, not only in those that you compete against, but the environments, the atmosphere, really makes it challenging and different than what they've been exposed to this point. I'm excited about living it with them. I'm excited about watching, Dan Moore and Najee and Muth and others get a taste of that action and watching them perform within it.
Much for the time. Appreciate it. Good luck in KC.
Thank you.
And that's going to do it for the Mike Tomlin Show. Thanks for joining us. We have our pregame show coming up tomorrow, 11:30 a.m. It's a big Sunday of football, Steelers and Chiefs at 8:15. That'll do it for our program. For Mike Tomlin, Missy Matthews, I'm Bob Pompeani. Have a good week, everyone, and we'll see you on game day.